Okay, so I've taken a quick look at my code again, and yeah, let's go through what we were previously discussing. So, if you kind of go back to what we were looking at before, the previous thing that I'd created was a post-processing volume. I'd added a second one in to kind of add like a really darkened effect to our level. If I just disable this, you can spot the difference between what we had before and then what we have now. Yeah, we have two of them essentially layered over the top of each other, and we need to make it so this post-processing volume, this darker one, isn't always visible. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to use what's known as a blend weight to slowly scale in the darkness into the level. So as you lose more and more oxygen, it gets darker and darker. Now the place that we're going to change that is in the level blueprint. So if I open that up, in the previous video I was a little bit kind of confused about what I was looking for. In this case, I've managed to kind of get my head around what it was. It's essentially, I was trying to figure out how we were going to access oxygen, and I was trying to decide whether we were going to do that in the player or whether we were going to do that in the in the level. And yeah, we're going to do it in the level, and we're going to use what's known as a cast to communicate with our player. So before we do anything else, we're going to use what's known as an event tick. We've gone over it before what it is. It's essentially just an update event. And we're going to just drag a line off the executable, and we're going to do a cast. And we're going to do a cast to our first person character. Our first person character is obviously the player that we have. And a cast is going to allow us to access the value oxygen. Because if you look in here, our variables for our level, there are no variables. And the way that we can access those numbers is through casting to this object. If I drag a line off from here now, I can access oxygen. So there we go. There's that value available to us. The issue that we have is if we click compile, it's going to throw an error because we haven't told it what specific object that we want to talk to. To explain how this works, the easiest way to do it is to imagine if you have, if you're wanting to talk to a certain object in the game, so let's say your first person character, or in another case, let's say a door or a button. You need to check which specific object that you're talking to, because otherwise it will cast that to all of the players and all of that specific type of object. So this category here, this input, needs to be filled with the specifics of what object you're speaking to. And for us, that's going to be what's known as the player controller. The player controller is essentially just something that you set up before you create your character that defines that this is one of the players that you're wanting to have in your game, that the player of the game can operate through. Now we can't. We can directly connect that up, but we get a warning. Yeah, I thought that would be the case. We need to get a bit more specific with what we connect this with. So to do that, we need to access the controlled pawn, which is the object that is connected to this. So we have our player controller, and then we have the controlled pawn, and then from that we can communicate with the character, which is the first person character, which is within that object. I know that's kind of like a little bit of a confusing one to get your head around, but most casts are kind of easier to figure out because, like, for example, if you've got something like an overlap event, I don't know if I can find one on this list. There is it there. Oh no, can't seem to find it. Oh well. Oh, you've got to have a certain object selected to be able to do it, but let's not worry about it. But yeah, you can essentially through this, we can talk to talk to different actors, and this is how you set it up, at least for the player. How it's set up for different actors varies, but for now this should be good. You know, we've compiled it and it's happy with it. So what we need to do next is we need to get a reference to our post-processing volume. So with that selected, I just select it in hierarchy. I can just pop back into here, right click, and you can see that there's I can create a reference for this post-processing volume. So I'm just going to drag off a line from there, and remember what we need to alter. It's the blend weight, and we need to set it rather than like retrieve it. So if I connect that into place, what I could do now is connect the oxygen to blend weight. Now there's an issue with this, because the oxygen value is 1,000 and the blend weight value is 0 to 1. So we need to make this oxygen value a lot less than what it currently is. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to divide it by 1,000. So whoops. We're going to divide it by 1,000 to knock it down to something a little bit more manageable. Now if we connect that up and we click compile and then press play, whoops, let me turn down the volume for my computer because that will be kicking out some noise. Yeah, if you look at it now, it's already dark, and over time it will get brighter and brighter. And this isn't what we're looking for. We want the opposite, that over time it gets darker and darker. The reason that that's happening is that if you think of like 1,000 is the most is the blend mode at 100%. If we look at our blend weight here, 1, or in our case 1,000 for the oxygen, is the blend weight at its fullest, and then over time as oxygen gets lower and lower, that blend weight gets less and less. What we want is for the blend weight to start at 0 and then increase over time. And the way that we're going to be able to do that is to create a separate value of 1 and deduct the value of oxygen off of it. I'll quickly mock it up in blueprints to be able to kind of make this a bit clearer. So let me just disconnect this now and just move this along a little bit more. So I'm going to right click and create a float minus float. So what it's going to be is the value of 1 minus the value of oxygen. So as a quick example, if we've got complete 1,000 oxygen, that's going to be, obviously divided by 1,000. That'll be 1 minus 1, which will give us a blend weight of 0, which means that's what we want. We want it to the most oxygen we have not be visible. If we're 50% oxygen down, we're at 500 oxygen. We divide that by 1,000, which gives us 0.5. So 1 minus 0.5 would give us 0.5, which would kind of give us, as you can see here, a partially faded effect. And then as more of the oxygen is removed, that would then kick in further and cause it to get darker and darker. So if we quickly test this now, you can see that it's immediately bright and stays bright, and then over time you're going to notice that it's going to get darker and darker and become progressively harder to see. If I just kind of sit here, it's a little bit hard because the buoyancy's kicking in, but you should see the object in front of me getting slowly blurrier and blurrier as time goes on. I'm just going to try and stay in the same position. It's surprisingly difficult to do. There you go. You can see those edges. I'm in the same position, but it's getting very difficult to be able to see anything unless I'm right up next to it at this point. And you can see that the environment's got significantly darker. So unless I get back to the surface, which I don't know if I'm going to be able to do with such limited supplies. We will see. It's gonna be close. I think I'm not gonna make it. Oh, there we go. Great. Okay, so if I go back under now, you can see it's back to being bright again, and if I can get close enough to an object for the blurriness to go away, you can see that my vision is back to normal under the water. You know, I've got a much higher range of vision than I did previously. So yeah, I'm gonna let me just get back to the surface again. The only other thing I'm going to cover in this video is I'm going to just place down the little treasures that I've created. So the treasures are essentially just an object that I created just using like a nice emissive material just to make them nice and glowy. I'm just going to turn off that glow just for now, so I can actually see what the heck I'm doing. And yeah, it's just some kind of object that you can place in the level and actually be able to, you know, collect. And we're going to have that in our interface as something to gather in the level. You know, and the more of these you collect, I don't know. I haven't decided what they're going to do yet. But we do have like a tally of how many that we've gathered. So I'm just going to put about 4 or 5 of these down in the level, just to kind of force the player to keep having to travel under the water to gather all of them, space them out, hide them, things like that. And I'll run through the code for how this is constructed in just a moment. But I'm not going to, once again, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it's not really relevant to what I'm wanting to cover. So I'm not going to be constructing it, I'm just going to explain, you know, what it is and what it does. Okay, so I am happy with those being placed, and they look really nice when you've actually got the lighting off, so there we go. You can see them quite clearly under the water now. You know, and as you get closer and closer, you get that nice particle kicking in that you can start to see. If I snip up to it and collect it. So let me just take a quick look inside the code for this. So I've created a variable called treasures gathered inside of my character, and this value, you know, so I'll have created inside of the character first this variable treasures gathered, and then as we've just literally done with what was it? With the post-processing value, we've done a cast to our first-person character. You'll notice that we've done this differently in that we are using the actor that it's colliding with as the object to talk to, rather than the player controller. And what we've done is just essentially say, if you know, when our character collides with the pickup, we're going to send a message to the character, and we're going to increase the number of treasures gathered by 1. We're going to increment it by 1, and then we're going to destroy the treasure. So it's reasonably easy to set up, but it's going to obviously allow you to have an object that you can collect and destroy, and in turn get some kind of score or indicator of progress through that. So those are all placed in our level now. We've got our oxygen our oxygen value working. We've got our post-processing effects that are kicking in based on how much oxygen we have left. We have our different particle systems in place, and we've got our different volumes and things working. So the next thing that we're going to implement, and pretty much the last area of the tutorial that we're going to cover, is going to be getting our UI set up. So kind of linking all of these different areas together, you know, in the form of having some kind of oxygen bar on the side of the screen and displaying our number of treasures that we have left. So I'm going to wrap this up here, and then we'll go through this kind of final couple of sections.